The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
We need a revolution. There's only one solution. I need somebody to show me the love. We need a revolution.
Hello and welcome to Inform Life Radio. Here we are on the Friday afternoon drive time Seattle on KKNW, and we're happy to be here with you today, starting a revolution, continuing the revolution and health, and making sure that we're monitoring our public health agencies. Right, Lisa?
Yes, sir. Hi, Bob.
How you doing, Lisa?
Good to see you. Looking
Yeah,
forward
so
to
I'll be your host this week, Bob Runnels. Bernadette's away doing some pretty high-minded politicking, I think, in Tennessee, but she'll be back with us occasionally over the next couple of weeks, and then more permanently back by the end of March. So we've also got Lisa Templeton, another director at Informed Choice Washington, with us co-hosting.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
I am.
So you're listening to Inform Life Radio and KKNW. We are sponsored by our members of Informed Choice Washington. We have many regular donors, and I hope that you might become one of those if you aren't already. And we are very appreciative of those members who are able to help us get this on the air. We always appreciate KKNW and their free speech platform, and we're able to record in many other locations as well. We've got Rumble and X and CHD TV, and CHD Children's Health Defense TV as well broadcasts us. So we're thankful for all those people who are willing to participate in our radio show, and our great guests. We'll have Patricia Lemer coming up soon, author of a new book called Total Load Theory. For donating to Informed Choice Washington, you can go to informedchoicewa.org, and we have a donate button there. Thank you very much. And
let's mention about how they can support us through Amazon too.
Yeah, we are. We're still trying to keep afloat in the nonprofit world. So we do have another option for you to help support us at no extra cost to you. We've got a new affiliate or associate relationship with Amazon. I know most of our listeners are probably like, I don't want to work with a big company. But honestly, they do. Most of the authors of all the books that we would feature on our show still generally prefer Amazon because they want to get up on the ratings, and they can spread the word more by playing in the big people's park, in the big people's playground for Amazon book ratings. So that's why I think it's okay to go to our website. We have a bookstore page. Start your shopping on Amazon there, and at no extra cost to you, we get a little extra commission that comes back into Informed Choice Washington. Thank you, Lisa, for setting that up.
Thank you. It was a good experience to learn.
Yeah. So real quick, another disclaimer. We are not providing any legal or medical advice officially on this show. So just please enjoy our information sources, do your own research, and we will bring you some great information here. I do want to update Lisa. Again, I'm going to call your name out, Lisa, because you've been doing some diligent research on the legislation ongoing in Olympia. And perhaps you might tell us about the bill that you found that was scheduled for committee, then pulled off committee this last week.
Yes, I think you're referring to Senate Bill 6321, which dropped 3 days ago, and it allows the state of Washington to sell $6 billion with a B dollars worth of bonds to fund what is called the Washington Institute for Scientific Advancement. And that institute would be governed by an 11-member council appointed solely by the director of the Department of Commerce. And then that council would award grants from that $6 billion to public and private entities for research in medicine, drugs and biologics, climate and weather, new and emerging health threats. And two of those 11 members on the council are University of Washington president or designee and Washington State University president or designee.
Right.
It also revises or amends the Open Public Meetings Act, this Senate Bill 6321, to exempt from disclosure the selection, performance, and compensation of the Institute employees and council members, and also the grant applications and reviews and data and findings, as long as it hadn't been published in the scientific literature yet. So, and it would also happen to amend the Open Public Meetings Act, not even as it pertains to the Institute, to exclude matters from disclosure that are believed to pose a security risk to the people of Washington. So we have concerns that this, advances in science are important, but this proposal raises serious concerns about transparency, accountability, conflicts of interest, and concentration of authority, given that appointment structure and the insulation of the $6 billion public investment from public oversight.
Yeah, that's amazing. That my hackles really raised on my neck when I saw that bill come through your watch list. That's on our bill watch list now on our website. And they pulled it out of committee. They scheduled it for committee, I think Wednesday. And then they all of a sudden said, oh, we're not going to hear it, with a little notice. And so it's an extensive bill. It's got a lot of new code in it, not just revising existing code, but a lot of new code as well.
Right.
And I did come across the fact that California has also filed a very similar bill in a larger scale. So I guess this is a formula amongst the West Coast Health Alliance. And one thing that struck me is like, this is, I guess, the state level NIH to do studies, where the National Institute of Health was running their own studies that are no longer going to be favorable, apparently.
Hmm. Yeah, and as far as I know, we can make FOIA requests to NIH. Now, that part I'm not sure about, but yeah, it's really problematic that this money could get awarded to just anybody that 11-member council chooses, and the public would really have no way of investigating who these entities are and what their application set forth.
Right. And they've also linked up the fact that basically DARPA or military programs could be included in this because of the way they wrote the front matter of the bill. They mentioned the Department of Defense. So my mind immediately scurried off to, oh, great, gain of function research without letting us know about it. So
That is a possibility, it seems.
yeah, we know that there's a biosafety lab level 4 at Washington State University in Pullman. So that's just one little warning sign. Anyway, let's move on to our radio show guest. Let's scare our audience a little less and bring on the friendly Patricia Lemer. How are you?
I'm terrific. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing great. It's been a great day. We feel the Maha tailwind here a little bit, and we can watch with some amusement as our state scurries to try to hide from the changes happening at the federal level. Anyway, so Patricia, where are you?
I'm in freezing Pittsburgh, where it's 10 degrees and it's going down to minus 13 tonight.
Oh. And that's probably not even the wind chill.
I don't know what the wind chill is, but we've got a foot of snow out there and everybody's home and hopefully listening to us.
Right.
There you go. Yeah. And so, again, thank you very much for joining us. We were fortunate enough, well, I was fortunate enough to meet you shortly at the Children's Health Defense Conference in November.
Right.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great to meet you. And
was
I
great.
enjoyed, I got to staff.
It was a big love fest, that conference.
It was.
That's for sure.
And I did notice, in fact, maybe I could bring up their website here shortly, but your website's got great photos, I think, from that event as you were just, was that the launch of your book? Essentially,
It was right before the launch of the book. The book was launched November 25th.
Okay, great. And so I'm just going to share for the people online anyway, they can see your website here. And you've got another book or two you've written, it looks like, but your pictures I get to see. We've got Patty from Minnesota, Mary Holland from CHD. There's James Maskell.
Right. So this is my fourth book. And I just dumped the whole brain into this book. This was my legacy book. And
Oh,
the previous book was published in 1819 and it went out of print in 24. And Mary Holland of CHD said to me, Patty, you have to have an active book. And I said, no, Mary, I'm done. I've written enough books. And she said, but we're going to help you get it one more book. And we can hook you up with Skyhorse, and the rest is history. I'm just thrilled that I was able to work with Skyhorse. I had great support and just so lucky to get James Maskell as to write my foreword. For those of you who don't know him, he's the founder of the Functional Forum, and he's not a doctor, but he is the voice of functional medicine. And he's just a wonderful guy, and he wrote me a beautiful forward for my book. So I'm
that's
most
great.
grateful.
Yeah, can you just explain to us a little more about the functional forum, or I think functional medicine in general is what you're referring to, and that's
Right.
a newer term, perhaps.
Yeah.
At least it is for me in many ways.
So it for me, it's a big duh. Functional medicine looks for causes instead of treating symptoms. And it's like, of course, why wouldn't you do that? So in my book, I talk about a headache. There's lots of causes of headaches. It could be that you're just under a lot of stress, or that your mother-in-law nags you, or that you don't like your work, or that you have a brain tumor, or that you have MSG poisoning. And depending on which is the cause, it determines what intervention you would do. And you wouldn't go having brain surgery if it's about your stress in your work or your mother-in-law. But if it's a brain tumor that they've detected, that might be the answer. And so for autism and other related disorders, you have to look at what the possible cause is. And I have a podcast, which I'll talk about maybe in a little bit, but
Oh,
it's called The Autism Detective. And I love being a detective. And for almost 40 years, I worked with clients who came to me. Does my child have a learning disability? Does my child have attention deficit disorder? Does my child have autism? And I would do some observations and take a really good history and look at the child and try to do some testing with the child to determine what was going on. And there's so many stressors that add up that make symptoms that it's important to look at what those are. And that's what total load theory is all about. And that term comes from engineering. And as I said, I live in Pittsburgh. We have over 400 bridges in Pittsburgh.
right.
And every year or so, one of them collapses. And why did that bridge collapse? Well, it could have been our terrible weather. It could have been an overloaded truck. It could have been a bad design in the first place. But what total load theory is, that it's everything. It's all of those things. And the stress from all of those things add up, so that overloaded truck is the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's not the cause of that bridge collapsing. And autism and ADHD and learning disabilities and anxiety disorders and OCD are the same. It's not one thing that causes them. It's an accumulation of things that everybody has a threshold. And as we move up closer and closer to our own personal threshold, the straw that breaks the camel's back puts us over our threshold, and we have symptoms, and then we get a diagnosis. But the diagnosis and the symptoms don't tell the cause. And so that's why it is so important to take a history and to look at some of those stressors and how they add up.
Okay. Can you take us back to, you said you've been working in this field for at least 40 years doing these observations. Are you a doctor? Are you a scientist?
My nickname is Practical Patty. I'm a counselor, and
Okay.
I learned early that I wasn't so good as a psychologist because I didn't have the patience to listen to the same story. And by the third time, when the client wasn't active enough for me, I wanted to shake them. So I learned that I could be a counselor, and counselors could delve deep and look at history and say, this is what I think is going on. And here's the 4, 5, 6 steps you need to do. So I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm nationally licensed, so I can give advice in every state. And counselors are lucky. We don't have to follow through. And if a patient or a client wants to come back after I've given them my best advice, then I can follow up with them a year at a time. So I might say, your child had a vaccination reaction. You need to go to this medical professional and see about detoxing what was going on. Or your child looks like he has nutritional deficiencies. He's a picky eater, or he has rashes, or he has tummy problems. I want you to go see this friend of mine, Kelly Dorfman, who's a nutritionist in Maryland. And Kelly and I co-founded a nonprofit in the mid-90s when nobody was looking at these causes, these possible stressors. And this organization was called Developmental Delay Resources, DDR. And we were one of the first to help people actually by talking to them on the telephone or sending them letters in the mail with stamps on the mail. And we did a survey in about 94, 95, asking parents, what did you think happened to your child? Why is he autistic? Because we were seeing a different kind of regression that we had never seen before. And we were just amazed. Now, this was with no internet to communicate with these people. We put ads and this survey in parenting magazines, and we got almost 700 responses in the snail mail within about a month.
Oh my. And this is like the early 90s or mid 90s, you say?
It's about 94. Yeah,
94. And that's, I guess, during that increased prevalence of autism. And
That's right.
of course, we look at that as the increase in the vaccine schedule as too.
That's right. And
Current.
the vaccine cocktails of MMR instead of single valent vaccines and DPT, where they needed a preservative, and their choice of preservative was thimerosal, which is almost half mercury containing. And so we realized that these kids, many of them were mercury poisoned. And there's a wonderful paper about, is autism just another form of mercury poisoning, that became a classic paper. And we weren't alone. I mean, we were not doctors, and there were lots of doctors, and specifically you and I talked about Andy Wakefield, who was saying that many of these kids who regressed, it was a result of a vaccine reaction. And that's what parents told us in this survey. We actually thought it was too many antibiotics because these kids had had ear infections and rounds of antibiotics, and many of them were on prophylactic antibiotics to prevent the ear infections. But that wasn't the cause of ear infections. They didn't have an antibiotic deficiency. Some of them were eating foods that were causing the ear infections. Another classic study that shows that most ear infections are a food reaction to, guess what? Dairy food
Dairy.
and gluten in wheat. And so that was a real eye opener for us. And once we took kids off of the problematic foods, guess what? Their ear infections stopped, their rashes went away, their behavior improved, their sleep was better, they were pooping more regularly. It was like, wow, did we just find the magic button? And we did in many cases. So it's been an amazing odyssey for me. And I started out in the late 60s with genetic disorders and then learning disabilities in the 70s and attention deficit disorders in the 80s. And as you said, at the end of the 80s, early 90s was when autism raised its ugly head. And that was concurrent with when the vaccine schedule accelerated and when the mercury was added as a preservative. So it has been quite a ride for me. And with this book, I decided not to focus on just autism. My previous two books were Outsmarting Autism, which I then revised, and that was the book that went out of print. And I then added to the title of this, Transforming Lives, not only in autism, but in attention deficit disorder, learning disabilities, SPD, which is sensory processing disorder, and mental health. And it is only recently that the world is recognizing the role of all these stressors that I've just mentioned, the vaccines, the food additives, the food, allergic foods, and toxins like mercury and plastics and glyphosate, which is in much of our food. The mental health world is now recognizing that drugging people with OCD and bipolar and anxiety and depression isn't the answer, because their sleep is disrupted and their eating habits are terrible and their lifestyle choices aren't good. And guess what? Psychiatrists are actually asking clients what they had for breakfast. And it's very exciting. And they've jumped on the ketogenic diet bandwagon. And your listeners may have heard of ketogenic diet, which is a high fat, low carbohydrate diet.
Okay.
And why does that work? Because our nervous system, here's a nerve, is covered, which is myelinated in fat. And that covering is like a protection on, let me see if like a cord. This covering on this cord protects us from getting shocked by what's inside and the electricity. So our nervous system is myelinated in fat. And where does that fat come from? It comes from our food. And it can't be Crisco. It can't be the fat that our French fries are fried in. It has to be good quality fat. It has to be essential fats, omega-3 fats, which are what make the nervous system work efficiently. And so the fat lobby, the sugar lobby actually convinced people that fat made you fat and fat was bad. And so we have a lot of people who go to a low fat, no fat diet. But now we're realizing that fat is essential. That's why they're called essential fatty acids, and that you have to eat your fat. You have to get good fat through good cooking oils, through nuts and seeds, and even a little bit of animal fat. So I've just watched this all change, and it's been very, very exciting. And the most exciting part for me now, I think the autism world gets it, but the mental health world jumping on this total load bandwagon is just a super exciting thing. And that's where James Maskell comes in and has helped, because these functional medicine doctors are realizing that we have to look at lifestyle. And lifestyle isn't just diet, it's sleep, it's movement, it's relationships, it's all the components of bringing down the stress in your life and living stresslessly, happily, efficiently. So it's just exciting to get this book out there into that mental health world, as well, of course, into the autism world and the learning disability world, the attention deficit world. So too many kids are sick. 1 out of 6 now has a diagnosis. And that is just impossible to manage. Our school system can't manage it. Our health system can't manage it. It's just overwhelming, and it's going to break the bank. And the next generation is going to not look very healthy.
Well, you're a good person to ask too, because you've been in this field or watching these kids in generations multiple times. So is it overdiagnosis? What do you say to the people who say, oh, we've got new diagnoses now, it's not an increase in prevalence?
That's really ludicrous. It is. Where are, besides Temple Grandin, who's the most famous adult with autism, there aren't adults with these disabilities. This is not about better diagnosis. It's about broader diagnosis. We're including people who, when I was growing up, we called nerds and geeks and strange, unusual behaviored people. But now they're getting diagnosed as of level 1 autism. And to me, they aren't the true people with autism who I spent a career trying to help. I'm talking about those who Bobby Kennedy mentioned, who may never get married, who may never even have a relationship, who have not had the opportunities that some of these nerdy, geeky adults who have PhDs and are absent-minded professors. They have sensory issues, they have vision issues, they have maybe social, emotional issues, but they're able, for the most part, to be independent. And they think that they're differently wired, but they're functional and able to be independent. I'm talking about the level 2 and 3 people who are really profoundly and moderately disabled and are going to have a hard time functioning independently without a lot of support.
Right. And those are the numbers that have truly increased in the time you've been in
Absolutely.
your practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we see the numbers, but in a picture in time, and anybody who's outside that world, they think, oh yeah, they're just diagnosing things better now. So I wanted to hear that from you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about better diagnosis.
Yeah. And now so how are you, Lisa? I don't know if you have any questions queued up, but I wanted to ask too, then, with the food pyramid changes that have
I love
come
it.
out, is that right up your alley?
We flipped it. We flipped it upside down. And so all those grains, which are heavy carbohydrates, are not where we want to be. We want to be with fruits and vegetables and good quality fats. And they're at the top of the pyramid now. And it's a real eye opener for people who have been buying low fat, often high sugary foods. And it's so interesting because our kids are drugging themselves with these foods that make them feel better, these high carb, high dairy foods with gluten and casein. They know that they're having trouble focusing and learning, and that these foods actually calm them down, because we found out that the gluten and the casein form opiates in the system. And an opiate is what is addictive.
And does that happen for everyone, or the people who are especially sensitive to the gluten and casein? And then also tell us where
it really
casein is
happens
made.
to everyone. It's a biochemical reaction between the gluten and the casein. It's comfort food. What do you want when you're not feeling well? Toast, pizza, macaroni and cheese, bagel and cream cheese. It's all the same food with a different name.
And what's casein for our listeners?
Casein is the protein in dairy products. And so these kids are drinking a lot of milk, they're eating yogurt, they're they're cheese lovers, and it causes mucus and it causes ear infections and it causes constipation, and when you put them on a dairy-free, gluten-free, wheat-free diet, all of those things improve.
Well, do you remember? Well, I'll just tell my quick story. But I remember when Olestra came out. I think it was Procter and Gamble that came out with Olestra, the fried food oil replacement that would have none of probably the fats that we're seeking now. Do you remember that?
I don't.
I remember they warned about you may get oily stools if you eat too much of this. Oh, yay.
Oh yeah, and that definitely dysregulated me when I tried it too. That was back when I was trying to avoid all those. I was looking for a way around.
So
I want to eat my snack foods.
food isn't the only stressor, and we have to look at lifestyle. So that's where I go first in the book, is looking at how much sleep is somebody getting. First, I look at what they're eating, drinking, breathing, but I then looking at the sleep and the movement, and as I said, their relationships. How stressful are those relationships? And everybody has people who bother them, but if you're being abused, if you have had a traumatic life experience, those are going to put your body into a state of freeze or fight or flight.
Right.
And the nervous system, if it's in one of those states, is not available for healing. So we can change the diet, improve the sleep, get them running around the block, get them doing all the things that we want them to do. But if that nervous system is hypervigilant, it's not able to take in that kind of thing. It is really focusing on the voluntary skills like digestion and circulation and staying safe. So we have to get the nervous system to a place of safety, feeling safe. And that precedes everything else. It trumps everything else to be able to get a patient feeling safe. And I was introduced to this by Dr. Neil Nathan, who is one of the top functional medicine doctors in the country. In his book, The Sensitive Patient's Healing Guide, how important feeling safe is to being able to get well and heal. And so I strongly recommend that people look him up, and that's just a marvelous, marvelous reference book.
It sounds like people, they get caught up in a rat race or they don't live in the greatest environments, but can people seek that feeling of safety in those moments too? Can they meditate? Does that count?
It does count. And meditation puts your body into a state that you can feel safe with. But it has to be more than that. That helps. It takes off about this much. But if you've had some kind of trauma, that your brain, some kind of experience that your brain interprets as trauma, it doesn't have to be a murder or a fire or a abuse. It if your teacher yelled at you in kindergarten and called you stupid, or if you saw somebody hit by a car and that traumatized you, that is a trauma to your nervous system. And so we have learned that that gets deep into our cells. It's not just in the brain. And so talking about it in therapy can be helpful, and we can learn ways of managing it, like meditating, but you've got to get to it at a cellular level because your cells are holding on tight. And to open those cells up, to be able to accept the good nutrition, accept the good therapies, get into a deep sleep, that requires a little bit more intervention. And I go into that in the book. There's a lot of methods of how to do that. And one of those involves reflexes. We're all born with about 100 programmed reflexes in our body that serve two purposes. They are developmental, and it's what gets a child out of the womb into the world. It's reflexes that get it down the birth canal and out. And then it's reflexes that get a baby from helpless, just lying there, to rolling over, to sitting up, to walking. And if we did nothing, babies would do that because they're programmed to do that. And we have a lot of practices now, like back sleeping and safety devices like bumbo chairs and that contain babies so those reflexes don't emerge and become integrated. And then the second part of reflexes is protection. And so in that first year of life, our reflexes become active and then become integrated. But if we're in an accident, if we fall when we're skiing, we put out our hands. That's a reflex. It protects us. And the reflex integration work of Svetlana Moskotova, who's a Russian working in Orlando, she's done marvelous work at integrating reflexes for people in all of these levels of autism, learning disabilities, and in tragedies like the Sandy Hook tragedy, when people were so traumatized, and in Pittsburgh, where we had the Tree of Life shootings. And so though our body returns to these primitive reflexes, and we jump and we're startled at the sound of anything that reminds us of the tragedy that we experienced. And she helps reintegrate those reflexes, so the body is then less prone to reactivity and feels safe again.
So that can be done years later after the failure of the
Right.
integration to occur at the developmentally appropriate time.
It can. And hers is not the only program, the reflex program, but it's one of the best known and one of the most efficient ways of doing it. But I talk in my book about some of the other ways of getting to safety. There's something called the Safe and Sound program. And the king of all of this safety stuff is a guy named Steve Porges, who is a psychologist who discovered the vagus nerve is not a single nerve, but it has two branches that go from all deep in your brain all the way down, touching every organ all the way down. And there's a lot of vagus nerve programs that you can do. And I mentioned most of them in my book, and there's all kinds of apparatus now that you can stimulate your vagus nerve, and you can do everything from gargling and humming, which are both good for your vagus nerve,
Okay.
to buying
heard
some of
that.
these expensive programs.
Is a person ever too old to set about doing this reintegration process?
That's a great question, and that's usually the way that I end my interviews, is that it's never too late. It's never ever too late, and we are discovering what we can do now with young adults who have been dumbed down and disrespected because they don't talk. We now have letter boards that they can communicate through, and some of them are really, really surprising us about what's going on in that brain that's had 20, 25, even 30 years of non-communicating. And it's just remarkable that they've been so patient waiting to let us know what they know. And there's just remarkable stories out there. I have some of them in the book about we did not assume competence. We dumbed down these people all the way through their 12 years of school, and some of them are now in college because they can understand a foreign language, they can do higher level mathematics, they know history, geography, that we never ever suspected that they did.
Yeah, we've had JB Handley and his son,
Oh, have you?
and Jennifer Larson and her son talking to us about these very things on the show, and
Oh,
we got to
wonderful.
hear what the boys had to say. Well, I guess they're young men now, and absolutely stunning.
It is stunning. It really is stunning.
Well, you must know most of the people on the newly named council.
I do. I do. It's
Which council?
the Autism Council that really the previous members were not into healing autism at all. They were believers that autism was a lifelong condition and that it was a mystery, and Bobby has appointed a lot of the activists like you, several of them who are parents of non-speakers and have just been amazing in getting their.
Well, I saw, Cade Larson himself is on the
He is.
council.
He
And
is.
two,
Is
and
he?
two other spellers. I
Oh,
believe.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Is Caden in the state of Washington?
No, just that we had spent some time with him at the CHD conference
Oh,
that
did
week.
you?
We were there with you too. And yeah, but again, he's been on the radio show, on our radio show.
Yeah, there was a panel of these non-speakers at the CHD conference. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very big news. So that's all great news. We're here with Patricia Lemer, author of Total Load Theory, if you've just joined us. And so we're still going to finish up a couple more questions for you if you have the time.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit on the antibiotic phase of your experience, where you thought antibiotic use or overuse was possibly leading to behavioral health issues. But for how long did you operate on that theory? And is antibiotic overuse still a thing that we should watch out for?
Yes, it is. And antibiotics is a Band-Aid, and it's a very exciting, necessary Band-Aid that has saved the world from people dying of some of these dread diseases. But if you have an ear infection, for instance, or any kind of infection, you've got to get to the root cause. And the antibiotics are so powerful that what we believe happens is that the immune system gets less functional, because the more times the antibiotics come around, it sort of says, I can be lazy now. I don't have to do my job. The antibiotics can do the job. And that's why we have to keep getting stronger and stronger antibiotics to get to these mutated bugs. But we have to look at some of the underlying causes such as mold. Mold is emerging as a huge problematic stressor in so many of these kids. Mold is ubiquitous, especially in places with lots of rain, places that have had hurricanes and floods. And many families don't realize that even if they sop up the leaks, behind the walls, there's trouble brewing. And this is especially true if you see different organ systems acting strangely. If you have a sleep disturbance and you have rashes and you have a cough and you have poor digestion, think mold. And I really always have to look at that in the history. Did you have that situation?
Well, I didn't have that situation, but I wanted to mention we've had Roman Shapoval and his wife Bodana on before, and they do a lot of studying and offer classes on EMF mitigation and avoidance. And one of their programs talked about some evidence that pointed to a possibility for the rising prevalence of difficulty with molds is that the molds may put out extra poisonous or toxic exudate or whatever it is they're putting out in the presence of EMFs as sort of a defense mechanism, which I thought was really fascinating. And I know your book covers EMFs and EMRs too as a potential source of problems.
And one of our listeners just chimed in about CIRS.
I don't know what that is.
Hmm.
But it's not just mold that is exacerbated by EMFs. It's also Lyme and strep and other bugs. They put out toxins because they're agitated too, and they're protecting themselves. So it's a double problem.
I had never thought of those other
Yeah.
sources. Yeah.
And Lyme is so ubiquitous now too. It's in every state, and it's not just deer ticks. We believe that they're mosquitoes and fleas and other biting things that carry some of the bugs that are under the umbrella of Lyme. And it can even be passed from mother to unborn child if the mother is carrying the Lyme. I know several families whose kids have never been bitten, but who have congenital Lyme. And so that's a horrific problem. But a couple other things that are in the book that I don't think are anywhere else. One is that this book goes from prenatal through the lifespan. And we have talked mostly about children and some a little bit about young adults, but there's several chapters on what to do when mommy and daddy aren't here anymore. And what are some of the safeguards that you can put into place to help your child who lives after you're gone? And they're looking at options for living, options for working, options for socialization, and how to find those. And so that's really an important piece of the book. And the other part of the book that's unique is that it has an AI companion to it. And everybody's hearing a lot about AI these days. And if you're familiar with ChatGPT, you know that you can ask it to do anything you want and ask it questions. And what it does is it searches the whole internet. But my book has its own AI companion that searches my intellectual property. This book, my previous books, and my over 100 episodes of The Autism Detective. And I've interviewed about 125 now, parents, adults with these disorders, and all kinds of practitioners, from neurologists, functional medicine doctors, autism doctors, OTs, PTs, SLPs, and optometrists. I've gotten very interested in vision and vision therapy. So it searches all of those podcasts and the book. And so you can ask it a question and it will give you what Patty would say about it, not what the universe would say about it.
And how do people interface with that if they have your book in hard copy?
They have to have the book and show proof of purchase of the book to be able to do that. I think they can ask a couple of questions without to whet their appetite. But if you ask it by typing, it gives it back to you in typing. My tech guy has cloned my voice. So if you, it gets better. If you ask the question in your voice, you get my answer by voice in, right now, 8 languages. So you can ask it in French or Spanish or Chinese or Arabic. And I speak those languages now because I'm cloned and they somehow put the sounds together so I can answer you in your native language. And eventually it will be able to do this in up to 70 different languages.
Wow, you're going to reach a lot of people that way.
I certainly hope so, because that's my goal. That is my total goal. And people think you make a lot of money publishing a book. That's not my goal. My goal is to help as many people as I can, and to get to those people who think that they have to live with these sensory issues or these sleep issues, the food allergies. There's a ways around them. Not always successful, but it's certainly worth a try.
Yes. Well,
So-
I just want to point out to the audience, in case you haven't already gathered, Patty's book is very comprehensive. I mean, she covers the whole gamut of causes.
Here it is.
Yep, here it is, Total Load Theory. And tune into our Substack to get the link and everything to her book. And also her website is
Patricia Lemer, LEMER.com. And to get the AI feature, you go to AI.patricialemer.com. And we're working on a website for Total Load Theory. It's not up yet, but it's coming. And I'll give out my email address. I love interacting with people. It's developdelay@gmail.com. And I just ask you that you're familiar with the book before you email me. I no longer do consultations, but I will give you my best effort at answering your questions. And I also have an enormous network of people all over the world.
You must. Absolutely.
And I am happy to find you the person that you need, or a couple of people that you need that are nearby geographically. But everybody's doing remote consults now, so it's not even necessary to have somebody totally local. But
Yeah. Okay.
what a
Thank
great
you,
resource.
Patricia Lemer. Thank you.
You're
We're wrapping up
welcome.
the show now. You hear the music coming on, so we have to wrap up. And,
Okay, I hear it. Well, thank
Yep.
you for this opportunity. It was so much fun talking with you
It was
tonight.
great having you.
yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Lisa. And you've been listening to Inform the Life of Radio on KKNW. See you next week.
Take care. Thank you all.
Informed Choice Washington is a nonprofit organization that advocates for healthy immunity, medical freedom, and fully informed medical consent. The right to make medical choices without coercion is fundamental to our civil liberties and a basic principle in all human rights declarations. To learn more, tune in each Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. to An Informed Life Radio and visit the website informedchoicewa.org. It's time to take a stand for medical freedom. Go to informedchoicewa.org today.
Did you know that solutions containing iodine can inactivate viruses in the nose and throat in 15 seconds? And hydrogen peroxide can do it in under 30 seconds. Decades of studies, including many conducted during COVID, have shown that properly prepared and used nasal spray and gargling solutions can reduce your risk of infection, reduce viral load, reduce symptoms, and reduce transmission of viruses. To learn more, go to healthyimmunitynow.org and check out the EFU Challenge. Why spread fear and infection when nature provides solutions? Go to healthyimmunitynow.org today.
The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.